Senators debating the resolution to extend the emergency powers order. Police investigate the country's latest homicide, and government officials pay their respects for a former senator. Good evening, everyone. I'm Leah Cooper with your JCN News for this Thursday, January 28th. The state of emergency and the emergency orders are the only way to have the maximum degree of legal certainty. That's the position that Attorney General Senator Carl Bethel says he's taken as it relates to the management of the country during this global pandemic. COVID-19 senators began debating this morning on the resolution to extend the state of emergency to May 23rd. As the leader of government business in the Senate, Senator Bethel led off debate, presenting his defense to extend the resolution. He says that Bahamians cannot take chances or roll a dice as to whether a law is effective, as people must know with certainty what is the law that governs their conduct at any one time.
This is why I'm somewhat puzzled that it is reported in the press that the leader of the opposition stated that I, as Attorney General, had confirmed the following, quote, any new measures needed to keep the Bahamians safe can be enacted through ordinary legislation.
During debate in the lower chamber, opposition leader Philip Davis suggested that any new measures needed to keep Bahamians safe can be enacted through ordinary legislation, adding that the Attorney General had confirmed as much. Senator Bethel says that statement is false, suggesting that the opposition leader may have made the statement by mistake. He added this.
Because it is clear on the record of this Senate, where I previously addressed this issue at the time of the last extension debate in November. And I stated clearly to the Bahamian people that yes, we had worked to create a new legal framework that would have been passed in Parliament. However, when we looked at the powers that were necessary under the emergency orders, and we looked at the case of Suraj that I have referred to, we realized that the powers required, such as the power of curfew, the power to limit travel, the power to prevent, to have island lockdowns, the power to generally lock down every non-essential business, were not powers that could be exercised under an enactment made in Parliament. I stated that in this place.
Senator Bethel says the government needed to continue the emergency regime in order to have all tools necessary to fight the contagion.
You know that while coronavirus infections have continued to rise around the world, flu infections dropped. Ordinary influenza infections around the world plummeted this year. But coronavirus infections continue to rise worldwide. Why is that? Because the flu is less infectious, less transmissible, and even then, you know, the flu, you get that being in the same room with somebody without any protective facial coverings, etc.
Senator Bethel says with 2 new strains of the coronavirus, we are now in a race with the virus and its mutations, and says the country cannot let its guard down. Senator Dwight Sawyer, seconding the resolution in the upper chamber, says sacrificing today's movement will give tomorrow's freedom. Following the lead of his colleagues in the lower chamber, Progressive Liberal Party Senator Dr. Michael Darville says the opposition in the upper chamber also cannot support an extension to the emergency powers orders, as he says 120 days of an extension is a free pass for the government not to report to Parliament, which is required in the COVID-19 regulations. A COVID-19 survivor himself, Dr. Darville says, in his opinion, the government is using these powers to cover over the deficiencies in their government.
I've seen it. I've watched it. It is being used, in my opinion, for crime fighting, despite what the Minister of National Security tried to convince us of. These emergency powers are being used to give the free national movement, and this is my opinion, and a lot of people believe it, the upper hand for political campaigning. To curry favor.
Let's do that.
To curry favor labor with certain sectors of the economy, and to hold all and sundry at bay by using it to say that anyone else who goes against these extension goes against the fight of COVID-19. What a bunch of hogwash. But the devil is a liar, Madam President.
Now, Dr. Darville also defended the Progressive Liberal Party's COVID-19 task force, which was formed in late March following the first case of COVID-19. During his contribution in the House of Assembly on Wednesday, Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis accused the opposition of a disgraceful act of setting up its own COVID-19 group under their party political branding for political gain.
Yes, the Progressive Liberal Party's COVID-19 task force was put in place by the leadership of our party with a primary focus of providing guidance and sound evidence-based recommendations to support the government efforts in the fight against this deadly virus. And yes, Madam President, the PLP task force have and will continue to highlight the competent authorities' missteps.
Dr. Darville says that at no particular time his party's task force was designed or used by the leadership to compete or undermine the work at the Ministry of Health, but was created to facilitate a bipartisan response to effective management of the virus, adding that the PLP's task force was absolutely necessary. Dr. Darville contends that a request for the sweeping emergency powers as a big mistake. Senator JoBeth Colby Davis this afternoon, also during her debate in the upper chamber, says Bahamians can no longer hide their pain, adding that they're fighting to make it through another year of COVID-19. She says the Bahamian people have been overwhelmingly compliant with the very strict regime that was thrust upon them for the better part of a year, and adds that the people have done their part to slow the spread of COVID-19. The PLP senator adds that should another wave of COVID-19 hit our shores, the very same political figures claiming responsibility for COVID-19 progress when numbers are low will disavow themselves and their policies of responsibility when numbers increase. She says instead the blame will be passed down to the Bahamian people. Now, U.S. President Joe Biden recently labeled the United States vaccination rollout as a dismal failure, citing inadequate planning as the reason behind it. In light of this, Senator Colby Davis says the Bahamas cannot afford to get its vaccination rollout wrong. She also echoed opposition leader Philip Davis's recent statement requesting that the government report preparations regarding a potential outbreak of a new, more contagious and more deadly variant of COVID-19, adding that the Bahamian people deserve better leadership and a plan that responds to their current condition and aspirations. Education Minister Jeffrey Lloyd says in the coming days there will be a clear official date for the 2021 national examinations, which includes GLAT, the Bahamas Junior Certificate, and the Bahamas General Certificate of Secondary Education. This update comes just days after the ministry postponed face-to-face instructions in public school on the islands of New Providence, Abaco, Exuma, and Eleuthera.
I know that right now the ministry's testing and evaluation department have been meeting with Cambridge Assessment. I have also had a meeting with them, and they are also further engaging the stakeholders, meaning our teachers and educators, by way of their advocates, the unions, to firm up precisely the dates for the conduct of these exams. As you would expect, it is likely that those exams will start later in 21 than in 20 or the year before.
GLAT examinations, which 3rd and 6th graders sit, was canceled last academic year. As for the BJC and BGCSE examinations, they were postponed until early July 2020. Meantime, there has been much debate from the public calling for education officials to consider cancellation of the examinations as the country continues to battle the pandemic. Minister Lloyd was not shy for words in responding to this.
We have thousands of students who depend on the results of those exams, positive results, one, to go on to tertiary institutions, whether this year, next year, or sometime in the future. Secondly, to enter the job market. Even in the government, we are looking for qualifications that are at least considered in the exit exam results, BGCSE.
You're watching JCN News. Stay with us.